You mentioned one of your, I've always been curious about when it pops up in conversation, the crushes you've had over your life, because they're so eclectic, and each one tells a different story to me of who you were and what your values were. And I learned of a new one that was your first crush ever that you mentioned in this book. And will you tell us who that was?
Yeah, my very first crush that I can remember, the kind of crush that keeps you up at night, was when I was 11 years old, and it was on Dana Carvey, who many of you might not even know, which makes me so sad. But Dana Carvey was like the Bill Hader from like 1992 SNL. Is that like the example?
Yeah.
Like he was an incredible impressionist, and like he did the church lady and did all these impressions of Ross Perot. And now I'm really dating myself. Most of this audience is like, who the hell is Ross Perot?
Right.
Anyway, but so he was, and I had an enormous crush on him. He was my very first.
What kind of fantasies did you have involving Dana Carvey?
Well, here's my thing. I never liked like the bad boy. I never liked 90210 Luke Perry. Like that wasn't for me. I only liked like the good boy, which is why Dana Carvey was so appealing to me, because he was very sweet and nice, and I could picture like living next to my family with him in our house. Like that was my fantasy.
Parents loved Dana Carvey.
Yes.
Yeah, you would have done well.
Yeah.
What other crushes did you move on to from there?
Well, it wasn't until I got older that I liked like bad boys, like you.
I like to think I represent the good boy in most people's.
You know what you are? You're the bad boy in the group of
can't
good
resist
boys.
the bad boy.
You're like the baddest of the good boys.
I think that's true.
Like at space camp, you're the kid who like is like, want to smoke weed? And everyone's like, that guy's cool.
That smoking weed at space camp sounds really fun. This is gonna blow your mind. We can go there. Who were the other crushes when you did, when the bad boy thing did percolate?
I loved Christian Slater. When Heathers came out, I remember wanting so badly for Christian Slater to take my virginity. I thought that would be like a pretty interesting.
And
it happened. No, it didn't. I later then saw him because he was on a TV show, and I think he awkwardly, he was very sweet, but he had heard that I had said that, and he came up. We had a very awkward conversation at a TV event.
I don't mean to embarrass you. I remember another crush that was fiercely debated in the writers' room in the office, which was Pierce Brosnan.
Yes. Yeah.
What did that represent to you?
Well, I remember when I was younger, Pierce Brosnan, and I read a little bit about this in my first book. He was in Mrs. Doubtfire, and he was like the hot guy in Mrs. Doubtfire. And what I liked so much about him was that he represented a very 80s and 90s ideal for women, which was kind of before we got into like the thing that all men must have like no chest hair and be super tan, uniformly tan. And he didn't have any of that. He had chest hair, and he was kind of pale, but he looked like a normal hot dad. And I was like, for some reason as a younger person, I was very
It's so telling to me that you had a crush on Pierce Brosnan as the dad from Mrs. Doubtfire rather than James Bond.